And there you have it. Greetings from Jos, the capital of Plateau State. What you're seeing right there is the old airport junction, showing you the beautiful view from Yakubu Gowon Road. That airport junction takes you to so many parts of Jos. If you're going to Rayfield, where Government House sits, or you're going to NASCO, that is the place where you need to be. But hey, we're in Abuja this morning, and just in case you're wondering what the temperature is at, as in Jos in this today, it's going to get up to 34 degrees. It's quite hot in Jos today, and will be hot for most of the afternoon. 12 hours of daylight, you understand you'll have. And also, it's going to get cooler much later, giving you a very nice 19 degrees if you're there till nighttime. Well, good morning and welcome. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf.
A very good morning to everyone. Morning, Maokpe. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. We are live in our Abuja studios, but like Maokpe said, beautiful city of Jos right there. For those of you who grew up in Jos or live there, you understand that Jos is home for a lot of people. It's a place that is very cool, lovely weather, lovely people. It's a shame a lot of the things that have happened in the past few years and months, but still, the spirit of Jos is one that cannot be defeated. A lovely skyline right there, that road there, the major road, Yakubu Gowon Road.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, leading to the airport, also leading to Rayfield. It's one of the highbrow areas in Jos, by the way. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And what's happening in Lagos this morning?
Well, Lagos still has its own beautiful weather. Look at this road. Yes, that is the Lagos Super Expressway inward and, Lagos. Well, this angle is taking you out of Lagos, if you can see it properly. That road leads all the way to Ibadan and all the way to Lagos Island, joins the third mainland bridge on the other side. Temperature in Lagos right now is 21 degrees. Humidity is 85%. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
If you were here, you would have been sandwiched right between two beautiful ladies. There is so much happening today. We're just going to be bringing you snippets of a bit of them, and we're going to be starting at the Federal High Court, where the newly appointed 11 justices of the Supreme Court will be sworn in by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola.
Also happening today, and we are on ground to ensure that we get you all the details of this one. This terrorism charge, Nnamdi Kanu's trial, resumes at a Federal High Court. All resources and everybody really is taking the time out to ensure that we get all of the details of this, but that is happening today as well.
Much talked about party politics.
I think there needs to be some clarification.
Well, some party politics. PDP is presenting a certificate of return to its Edo governorship candidates today. When and how that is happening, of course, stick with us here at Channels Television. We're bringing it all to you.
Yes, indeed. I think just some clarification that the Supreme Court justices swearing will be happening at the Supreme Court. But we're looking also at labor matters for you. Quite a lot is expected to happen on the front of labor this week. We understand there are going to be protests happening, but today the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria is going to be holding a press briefing, which we'll be bringing to you much later today. What the content will be, you certainly will have to wait to find out.
And of course, you know, a lot of conversations around this planned protest. We're hearing that there is some injunction stopping protests from happening. So this particular press conference is very, very crucial for today, so we can know what direction we're going in, you know, when it comes to, you know, complaints about the economy and how people are trying to survive.
But just to clarify that, yeah, this will be for the Trade Union Congress.
Yes, but this is for the Trade Union Congress.
The NLC is the one.
The NLC are the ones that have that injunction, don't they? But it's going to be a very important conversation nonetheless, because it has thrown up the conversation about how protests are supposed to be done. Should protests be done? Is it the right time? Should some negotiation be going on? These are some of the conversations right now. So very important matter there happening today at Trade Union Press Conference right here in Abuja.
Well, one other thing that is definitely happening today, and this time on this program, is an assessment of the Central Bank of Nigeria's efforts to save the Naira. How? What needs to be done? What needs to give? That's at the top of the next hour at 10 o'clock when we bring you Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. So now, time for us to look at the papers.
Well, let's start off with the Guardian newspapers. And what do you see right there? It says, FX crisis. Nigeria falling out of top 4 African economies on weak currency. That's the lead story on the front page of the Guardian. You also have, a number of riders to that story. Emerging prospects, challenges of state police amid legislative traction. ASU warns of imminent strike over alleged insensitivity by federal government. And just in case you're wondering, 65 CSOs withdraw as NLC dares federal government mobilizes for nationwide protest. All of those stories are right there on the front page of The Guardian.
And we're moving on now to the New Telegraph. Biggest headline there, Tinubu to tripartite panel. We may not have answers now, but we're trying. More on that from page 3 of the New Telegraph. And of course, we're seeing this story from the NLC. Will initiate immediate strike action if attacked during protests. More on that from pages 2, 4, and 5 of the New Telegraph.
Switch to the Nigerian Tribune this morning, and what you have, economists dissect Nigeria's problems, proffer solutions. What are those solutions? Well, perhaps you want to look at the riders for some hints. The details you'll find on page 6. Teriba Rewane Kale, Adebajo, Fashua Okiti, Shitabe want fiscal discipline introduced, a reset of country's economic framework to target key sectors, government to sell real estate assets within 2 to 6 months to attract dollars, the poor and vulnerable targeted through expenditure subsidies. Well, what do all these mean? Details you'll find on page 6. That's the lead story of the Nigerian Tribune today.
Well, take a look at the Vanguard. And what do you see there? Job losses. Factory closures loom as unsold goods pile up. That's according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN. Naira plunges 254% in 8 months. Existence of MSMEs further threatened. That's according to ASBON. CBN should adopt managed flotation of Naira. That's according to the CPPE. You'll find details on page 19 of the paper.
And on to the Daily Trust newspaper. Qatar backtracks. Hosts Nigeria Business Forum. More on that from page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper, of course, giving an update on that story that we've been hearing about for the past few days. So I'll take it again. Qatar backtracks. Hosts Nigeria Business Forum. I'm still talking about the economy here. Nigeria reaping the benefits of reform. We're seeing that on the front page of the Daily Trust. And it's a very interesting one here, Mark, where builders seek alternatives as cement price soars. What alternatives are those? Page 28 of the Daily Trust newspaper. We'll give you more.
Interestingly, we had a conversation around that last week, asking the cement manufacturers, are there alternatives? And some were listed. This paper will definitely give you details, perhaps some perspective from that. The Nigerian Observer is what's next, and as you can see on your screen, CBN's new capital requirements send 6,000 BDs in search of 3 trillion naira. What is that new capital requirement? Well, you may want to check the details. I saw another paper said something else. Maybe we'll get there this morning. You'll find that one also very interesting. But that's the lead story of the Nigerian Observer today.
Well, take a look at this Nigeria, and they have this. Mark Tinubu sets up tripartite economic advisory committee. 7 die in stampede during 10,000 naira rice distribution by customs in Lagos. You find details somewhere inside the paper. And that story that also broke yesterday, fire raises residence of FCT Minister of State, Mahmood. That story is also there. Let's leave it there for this Nigeria.
The Abuja Inquirer. Lots of stories from Abuja here, so I'm going to see if I can take you through a lot of them. But a major headline there, 33 years after, Abuja's master plan up for review. And they say, according to the FCDA here, lack of funds delayed that review. So that's something to look forward to from the Abuja Inquirer. And of course, you mentioned that headline there, fire guts FCT Minister of State's residence, and that's on page 6. And then, of course, we're seeing this one also from Abuja. Abuja vows to protect contractors from hoodlums. More on that from page 5 of the Abuja Inquirer.
And if you check the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper this morning, what do you find? You find that story on your screen. CBN proposal on BDCs may see APCON emerging as a company. See? Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. Does that mean they're going to be coming up with a bank or something? Well, check the details on the front page. It continues on the inside pages of Daily Independent this morning. And of course, there's some interesting graphics at the bottom of the page. Nigeria reaping the benefits of reform. Really? Well, you may find it interesting on the front page of Daily Independent today.
Well, leadership has this one for you. 5.108 trillion naira in 8 months. Hardship unabated in states despite huge allocation. So that is the lit story on the front page of leadership, focusing on what has been happening at the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee. That story is right there. Labour warns federal government against attack on protesters. Don't forget that Labour, that's Nigeria Labour Congress, has scheduled tomorrow and next tomorrow to host protests across the country. And it does appear a lot of controversy is trailing Labour's plans to host that particular protest. But let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
The Blueprint newspaper, defiant NLC insists as Afenifere CSOs urge ceasefire. Police warn against violence. Banana seeks protection. Labour hatching hidden agenda, says presidency. We're seeing more of that from page 10 of the Blueprint newspaper.
Nigerian Tribune this morning, some perspectives that you have there when the economists are saying that Nigerians, they have some ideas, that they are proffering to the presidency. And then, of course, we also see that the president set up an economic advisory committee. Part of that story is what you also find on the front page of the New Telegraph. They're saying that we may not have the answers now, but we are trying. Well, I think it's about time, a good time also for all those who have issues, solutions to please come out. Now, there are some things that we have been operating in breach. For instance, the local government administrations, if they were active, if they were doing what they ought to do according to the Constitution, I don't think we will still be talking about the issues that we're talking about right now in some cases. For instance, the issue of security. A good number of people have said that that's the first line of defense in our security architecture in the country. So if we could just obey the Constitution, do what it says, allow the local governments to operate maximally, fund them efficiently, I think we'll be making some headway. There's some other paper that we were not able to get to this morning because of time says that something in the region of 50-something trillion naira has already been given to the governors within the past how many months. And this is where we are. Local governments also have their own role according to the Constitution. If they were doing what they needed to do the way they ought to do it, will we still be in the kind of security, we have the kind of security challenges that we have? Then perhaps we'll be able to produce maximally. No one will be charging people about, that you have to pay some licenses, some penalties or some money before you can harvest your food and crops. It's one of those takes that I have, right now. We're talking about macroeconomic issues, amazing. How about microeconomic issues? What is hindering us from producing? Can we have some low-hanging fruits, federal government and this tripartite committee? Let's hope that we'll be able to have some answers for them as well, particularly according to this headline on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. That's my take there, ladies.
Well, the take on the economy is certainly spot on, Ayo. I'm sure Kela wanted to highlight something as well on the tripartite committee. Did you see that coming, by the way?
It was inevitable. I think this meeting should have held a long time ago, but it didn't. But it has happened now, and that's where we are. We may not have answers now, but we are trying. So I'm taking it from the New Telegraph, and more on that from page 3. In fact, I want you to be able to look at what the chairman of Boa Cement Company said yesterday to newsmen. He said in an interaction after the meeting, the volatility in the foreign exchange market was not only manipulative but artificial. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and actions taken immediately, because we can't toy with this. It's too dangerous to toy with this. We can't have this situation going on. I'm glad that he's met with the private sector. I'm glad that this, of course, he has set up this economic advisory committee to address, the nation's economic issues. But we need to see results, Malcolm.
I guess results is what everybody is going to be angling for. Much later, perhaps, in the program, we'll bring you some of the tracks, or maybe business might be the one bringing you some of the outcome of what happened at the tripartite meeting yesterday, which the president held with the governors and also some stalwarts in the private sector. Yes, we're all stakeholders, but at the end of the day, when some people have billions of dollars invested in this economy, let's say some are more equal than others. But then we also heard them all saying that they were on all fours with the president, all of them going to cooperate and see how it is that we can get ourselves out of the doldrums. The governor of Anambra State, who also spoke, amongst one of the governors, said, look, we have what it takes in this economy to drag us out of where we currently are. And so we hope that, we will be matching words with action. But one of the things I'd like to highlight this morning, following on what Kela has also highlighted in her speech from the chairman of Boa Group, or the Boa Cement now, talking about artificial, manipulative and speculation happening with Naira versus the dollar. You see this on the front page of Vanguard newspapers. Forex crisis, clamp down on BDCs will worsen situation. That's what the presidential candidate of the Labour Party is speaking up against. Recent times, the federal government has brought up a number of, measures to try and ensure that only BDCs that are licensed are operating within the economy. We've seen them do raids. The EFCC has gone on raids in several parts of the country, in Oyo, in Abia, in Abuja here, in Lagos, in many parts of the country. These people, they blame them for the speculation, and they blame them for the fall of the Naira. And some people have asked, are they really the ones behind it? Are they really the ones? But whichever way, as Kayla has said, there needs to be a more critical look at what is happening here. We're sure that we're not going to drive these people further underground and make it very difficult for those who have had licenses, who have genuine licenses to do business. Let's not forget that a lot of genuine businesses are unable to really meet their forex demands. When companies that maybe need to purchase, need to do their business, let me put it that way, some of them do their business abroad, need to get forex, do we have legitimate avenues through which they can get them, source this currency without being held back? These are some of the things that need to be looked into. So it'll be interesting to, take a second look at this statement that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has made on the clampdown of BDCs, saying that it will worsen the situation. Well, I guess that wraps our look at the papers this morning. We'll be back shortly to take a look at something else that has just recently happened, which is the fact that INEC has released a report on how the last elections went. Just stay with us.
Do you know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cash Print Combo Deal for all events.
Yes!
Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 naira only. You get 50 invites, 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. Casprints, digital printing at super speed.
In this era of recovery, ability to engage virtual stakeholders successfully could be a veritable source of sustainable competitive advantage. Embark on a transformative journey with Texam's Effective Leadership in a Distributed World program. Join us from 9th to 23rd March 2024 for a dynamic 3-week online experience and a 3-day face-to-face session in the UK. This program will be delivered by illustrious Oxford-trained Professor Roger Dell's London Business School alumnus, Professor Paul Griffith, and Oscar-winning Ambassador Charles Crawford. Secure 25% early bird discount. Pay 2,407,500 naira for online and 7,864,500 naira for the UK and online sessions. Achieve, optimize, and win with Texam. For more information, email exec@texam.co.uk or call +44 7425 883791. Texam. Insights that inspire. Actions that change the world.
The journey to success is not always smooth. There are rough patches on the path to accomplishment. The struggle continues until solution appears that launches you to the world of your dreams, protecting, securing, and ensuring that you reach your goals. At International Energy Insurance, we know that the journey to actualizing your dreams could be tough, but we are always there to support you and help you prepare for the unexpected. International Energy Insurance is a Nuremberger company now positioned to serve you better. International Energy Insurance PLC. Energy to care.
Wednesday's plenary in the House of Representatives begins with a motion of urgent national importance on security in the Federal Capital Territory. Lawmakers are worried about the increased spate of kidnappings in the nation's capital.
They state that since the compulsory registration of and linking of national identification numbers NIN by the federal government, there has never been a time it was deployed to tackle or address the pressing and scary state of insecurity in the Federal Capital Territory or the nation at large.
Next, the House considers a bill to amend the Electoral Act. Sponsor of the bill, Honorable Francis Waive, believes that certain concerns observed from the 2023 general elections must be quickly addressed.
I crave your indulgence to consider another amendment that I propose. In the 2022 Act, the matter of electronic transmission of results was not definite. I think that we are the lawmakers. We are the ones that make the law for the country. I think we should not make a law that will be vague, that will be interpreted differently by different courts of law.
In the meantime, the delay in the issuance of national identity cards has caught the attention of lawmakers, prompting an investigation.
What is that the Commission headquarters and its state counterpart have been found to be ineffective in delivering the national assignment to the people, particularly in releasing the national identity card due to the government neglect of operational activities and directive for the benefit of all Nigerians.
Similarly, an investigation is to be carried out by the House Committee on National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, following the ban by the agency on the production of alcoholic beverages in sachets and small bottles in the country. The Green Chamber is worried that the ban could lead to job losses in the country. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Well, exactly. It is about a year now since we last held the elections in 2023. About this time, Nigeria was agog, hosting election observers and also hosting the entire country, making sure that we're all able to cast our vote. Well, that is over now. INEC has finally issued a report. It will be very interesting if you're able to get your hands on it. But we also have people right here in our studios to help discuss some of the outcomes of that and what it is we should be looking at if we're going to be looking at an amendment of our Electoral Act. And if the problem was with our Electoral Act. Well, joining us this morning, we have Mr. Kasim Afigwa, who is a former member, Media Strategy Committee of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress. And he's right here with us in our Abuja studios. Good morning, the Prince. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning, Magua.
Good morning. Oh, well, so this is what we have now. A year after, INEC has finally released a report. A lot of people have been saying that INEC should be audited. For a number of people, they had high hopes when INEC was, or when we were going to the polls in 2023, but it does appear that INEC did not live up to expectation. And some people were wondering, wondering whether it has released its report in the dark. This release of the report, is this something our political parties are interested in? Are they aware of it?
Well, political parties must be aware of the fact that INEC is releasing a report, because a report about elections is a summary, of all the challenges, the pros and cons, logistical problems, issues of finances, what they encounter on the field. It's just like a critical reassessment, and that is the way of civilized society, so that in subsequent elections, it will guide them to avoid certain pitfalls, certain issues that emanated from that election, and maybe they will learn a better lesson in terms of preparing for other elections in the country. It's a four-year season kind of scenario, aside from the isolated elections or standalone elections that we have in some other states. And so it's a natural thing to do. Researchers will also be able to place their hand on a document that will samples some of the issues that dominated discourse during the elections. And that way you'll be able to form an opinion, because a lot of people form certain opinion just based on social media reports, even when they are not on ground to witness what transpired. And so a report of this nature will give you an insight into what actually transpired in certain locations by the actors and the operators of the system.
I'm sure a number of people will be looking forward to getting a hold of that particular report, and maybe one of the places that they'll be looking at is the beavers and how it was supposed to function, and how, maybe they will have an excuse inside of it as to what precisely transpired.
The beavers worked actually. I think it's about the IRF. IRF is what people raise dust about. The beavers worked because even by virtue of the Electoral, there are no room for incident forms, where if the beavers failed you have to seek incident form, which was also part of our complaint for manipulation of election process. But Mark, let us face the fact: there is nothing you do so well in this country that anybody will want to say, oh, everything, and particularly politicians, they want to accept outcome of situations, outcome of political engagements and contestations. It's a thing that, like I used to say, I'm not an itinerant politician. I just found myself in political circles and as a media consultant and all of that, and in the process, participate. Just recently I tried to run for the governor of Edo State before I had to withdraw on account of zoning and what have you. But essentially, people must have, the stamina to engage the process, one, and also try as much as possible to, accept outcome of election, irrespective of how painful they could be. Because it's all about emotions, it's all about sentiments. People, talk about this every now and then and all that, but in a contest, only one person will emerge.
Yeah, while it is true that only one person will emerge, some people would say what we have always clamored for is for free, fair, and credible elections. It's not the first time that we've had elections in Nigeria, and we've seen attempts over the years to try and improve upon our processes. 2015 was a hallmark when we had the what's this new accreditation thing that we had now? The card reader. No, the card reader in 2015. There was an innovation there with the introduction of technology, albeit just for accreditation. Some people are looking forward to the day when we will be able to have electronic voting, but so far so good. We know that our Electoral Act doesn't adopt that just yet. In 2023, it was that we're going to do away with incidence forms and all the other shenanigans that we saw that the card reader wasn't able to help out with. And so they were looking for an improvement on, transparency, especially with regards to the introduction of the beavers. As you've rightly pointed out, the IREV, which was supposed to ensure that transparency, that it was what INEC was seeing, that also people who had voted at polling units also had, that did not quite happen, at least at the same time when a lot of people thought it was going to be happening. So from your own assessment, would you say that there needs to be a deliberate, or yes, it is a good thing that INEC has released a report, but don't you think that it needs to, give a very clear explanation of what happened between what was expected and what it delivered?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. I think people must know that political parties must deliberately and consciously develop their capacity to monitor elections on election day. And they shouldn't be relying so much on what INEC has told them with respect to collating results, sending the results to a particular central collating unit and delivering it on one back-end facility or technology, so to speak. You see, when people talked about IREF, I asked myself, how come the APC was able to get out, the summation of results even before every other person did? Because they had agents at the polling unit where you have to have your agent. The law specifies that once elections are collated and signed by the agents, a copy is pasted at that polling unit and also given to agents. So when you don't have agents on ground because of lack of capacity of getting the right agent, because it's expensive, you're going to give them money, you're going to sustain them for that day, from morning till evening, you have to be at the polling unit. You don't have to complain too much and be lashing onto IREF. No,
Mr. Akeredolu, but we've always had agents. I mean, in all of the elections
but you've never had IREF.
In all, exactly. In all of the elections that we have had in Nigeria, political parties have always been encouraged to have agents at the polling units. And they've always been contestations. And it was maybe as a result of trying to improve that process that INEC promised an IREV to say even ordinary citizens, not just political parties, ordinary interested citizens will be able to log on real time. I think that's where the bone of contention now came in, because INEC started to say, well, we didn't quite promise real time. But citizens do remember, or they thought they heard INEC say that this was going to be real time. So if taxpayers' monies at the end of the day have gone into INEC, to help it improve the processes and deliver on this IREV, and it doesn't deliver on that, doesn't it owe the people a very clear explanation as to what transpired?
That's why they have just come up with a report. And by the time you read, they will explain that there. That is one. Secondly, the issue of IREV is a technology. Anything can happen when it comes to technology. Anything can happen. And I remember that I raised alarm that people from the opposition party have trained people that want to hack into INEC facility and ensure that they post results. And see, you may not want to believe this, but I'm telling you from a point of information, point of knowledge of what I knew. It's not everything you see on television. There were deliberate attempts to hack into that facility. They were going to be posting results, and it is very easy to do because I've seen people demonstrate it in my office. And so it is easier for outsiders to condemn INEC for not using IREF, but I'm telling you again that parties must use agents to counter IREF, to counter IREF, so that in the final you still have your result sheets in place when you go to tribunal.
We have heard INEC talk about this IREF and explain what happened. Oh, there was a technical glitch. That is the official word from INEC, was that there was a technical glitch. I'm hoping that this report explains, this glitch, and of course explains further, because I think another issue that INEC had with that election is the fact that it was sold wrongly. Many people misunderstood, according to INEC. They misunderstood what they meant by saying the IREF was going to be introduced. According to INEC, they thought that meant that the IREF was a prerequisite for the freeness and the fairness of an election. They said that's not the case. There was a glitch, and because there was a glitch, they weren't able to upload it on real time. It came up later, and that doesn't affect the result because, as you said, party agents were there, and if those documentation from them meets what INEC has, then the fact that the IREF didn't work doesn't mean that this election can be questioned. But what I really want to talk to you about are some of the reforms, because that's the conversation that's going on right now about electoral reforms. We're engaging the electoral process before elections themselves. So as the National Assembly is trying to look into these reforms, what areas do you think should be looked at, and why should they be looked at? What solutions to the problems that we faced in 2023 should they be addressing?
You see, one of the fundamental intervention that I would want to see is to light up Nigeria. We don't have electricity in a lot of places in the rural areas. Yet you conduct elections and you want IREF to take the result to your central collating unit just in real time, as you have said. Even where there are electricities, they don't even function. I don't know how many hours of electricity you get in a day. Nigeria is one funny country. Funny in the sense that you have not hit the optimum in terms of electricity production. You are introducing technology that can't function at the same time in almost 146,000 polling units across the country. So we need to begin to interrogate the infrastructure component of the country. That is very key. Because I remember when I was to vote in my polling unit, and the COM member who was one of the officers there were saying that, this is our battery. If we no quick now, it go quick die. And I said, why? Well, you should have charged this very well. I'm told that you have an alternative battery and all of that. But this is a problem that, may have contributed to the technical glitch that INEC was talking about. Because you may have some results. You may not have the total result. And at the end of the day, people will always complain because the razzmatazz that attended that election was so profound that nobody was ready to believe INEC, whether they say the truth or not. Nobody was ready to believe them. We must continue, start a process of ensuring that we build in a little bit of confidence in processes. Because we're all shouting INEC, INEC, INEC. INEC are made up of Nigerians. You and I, they are there. And politicians are also Nigerians. And you know that there are politicians who always want to circumvent any system and all of that. So why you blame INEC? Look at yourself and your own conduct before, during, and after the election conduct. You see, we go to collation centers. Oftentimes it's in the night. There are collation centers at the local government level that don't have electricity because they say go to school premises. And you go to these school premises, there are no lights. So at times this thing, snowball into or spiral into the following day, and it leads to delay in collation of results. So as much as I cherish the facility and the therapy of IREF to solve some of these problems, but that infrastructural gap with respect to electricity and other technology is a huge issue that we must continue to look into. So it's not about reform. Every time you come talk about reform, you want to tinker with the electoral. We change laws too much. practice a particular law for 10, 15 years. Let's see how much impact this particular law will have, on the well-being of that process you are trying to address. So that in the final analysis, you'll be able to say, okay, this law we have put into practice for 15 years. What we have got is 40% of what we want to address. Let us tinker with it. There are laws that last for 100 years before they tinker with them. There are laws only in Nigeria that you see that laws are made for even the human beings. They are made for persons, not for the system. They say because this person is this, they will make a law and they will tinker with it. I think the real problem, the real challenge is for us to continue to drum it louder. Parties must play their role as agents of change, number one. Number two, there has to be a deliberate effort to carry out attitudinal reorientation of minds. You see, people keep talking. I have been on the field, I have seen things, I've seen scenarios. A lot of people don't even want to hear you preach all this attitudinal reorientation. All they want is just give them money at the local level. They want to go and cook pot of soup for their husband. They want to go and cook for their children and all of that. Whatever you do with the election, they don't care because they say you don't come back again to show accountability and what have you. So there has to be a greater need by political parties to get more people, involved in the politics of governance. Because the more, the merrier. When you bring people to participate, then they will have a greater responsibility of interrogating those who are there, delivering governance or failing to deliver governance. So there's a whole lot of responsibility.
I do know that one of the reforms, because we've had some conversation after the elections, one of the reforms that they're looking at, the national, even the the chairman of the INEC committee in the National Assembly, but more specifically in the House of Representatives, also spoke to the fact that this agitation that we should have a situation where those who have been elected, finish all court matters around their election before they are sworn in, is something that we need to address, because they think that when they are sworn in, they do have
undue advantage.
Exactly. So you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a good requirement. It's a good requirement that I would want to see. But again, you have to look at the state of the courts. As we speak now, if you have interaction with judges, they will tell you that some of them are allocated 100 cases within a space of 3 months. So 200 cases at some point and all that. They will tell you judges are not enough. Even the courts are not enough because Nigerians, they will always want to go to court. I remember when we were in government in Edo, Comrade Adams Oshimole tried to remove what you call the customary court of appeal. I said, this customary court and all of that, they don't have responsibility, but you pay the payment that's accruing to them is almost at par with other judges. A judge will sit to handle about 150 cases, 200 cases. Then a customary court of appeal will just handle about 10, 15 cases. And they go home with the same emolument and what have you. So you try to, eliminate that one and all that. It came up with all kinds of problems at the end of the day. People were complaining, this, that, and all of that. But what I'm saying is, it is good for you to finish your cases before you are sworn in. Good idea. But we must begin to think of how to commence that process by looking into the judiciary. How much of funding have you given them? How much of reform have you even carried out in the courts, to ensure that there are enough judges that will handle cases? Because litigations, electoral litigations are so huge. The last time, I think about 1,300 or something, I can't remember the figure. There was a time, the least time was about 780 thereabout. And so they keep going higher and higher and higher. Why? Because people just feel that people enter into politics impecunious. They don't have resources, they don't have money. But when they are getting out of it, they are so rich. So the craze for getting into politics is getting bigger and bigger, higher and higher. Everybody wants to be involved and all of that. And there's no politician you talk to when it's contested election. If they are 20, they will tell you all of them. All of them will tell you that I will win. I have all the structure. I have everything in place. Nobody wants to.
You were nearly one of those politicians.
But
just a few weeks
but I was saying, yes. But when I was told that this is the arrangement, I pulled back.
It's because of the zoning formula.
It wasn't zoning. They said from my part of the state that we already have a minister, so we should give order to zones the opportunity to contest. And I felt that was fair enough. So I pulled back. You know, a lot of people wouldn't want to do that. I went around the states. I campaigned in local government. I spent money and all of that. But I won't kill myself because in the final end, I know that if it's not me, it must be someone else. One person will emerge. No matter how fairly or badly conducted the process may be, one person will emerge. And so in politics, I keep telling people, it's not a game for morals. You know, don't come and preach morality in politics and all of that. Don't come and preach it. If you want to be, you want to make heaven, go and be a chief imam or a pastor and begin to wait for salvation. Because in the final analysis, the kind of lies they tell in politics, the kind of betrayals, the kind of backstabbing. This
picture that you paint of politicians, yes. People who are supposed to be in charge of the Nigerian people. And every time I hear
it's all over the world, though. This thing I'm
understand my point,
yes,
really. This picture that we paint of who politicians are, you cannot control them. Oh, they will do whatever. You have to let politicians be. If you want to go to heaven, that's not what you're supposed to do. We forget that these people are the same people who are going to be in government. And they're going to be the people governing over people who are moralistic in nature. What does that say to the kind of governance that you people with your point of view, because that is your point of view, people with your point of view are trying to portray politicians as people that cannot be moralistic? Is that what you're saying?
You see, I'm telling you, I like to be practical. I don't know how you see, a lot of Nigerians behave like Chichidodo bird. The Chichidodo bird is a very clean bird, very neat bird, beautiful. It feeds on maggot, but doesn't like the smell of feces. What produces maggot? It's the excreta that produces maggot, but that's what it feeds on. But it's a very neat, clean bird. Oh, don't touch me. You see, Nigerians must come to the realization that politics, the reward for politics is here on earth. You don't preach, you don't join politics because you want to make heaven. That is one. Secondly, it is all about service delivery. It's all about making the society a better place. So you need to build a strong citizen participation that will interrogate those immorals, so to speak. Interrogate and put them on their toes so that you can get that service delivery that is required of them at the point of delivering their promises. So that you see, you don't say, oh, because I'm a moralist. A lot of people don't get into politics and say it's a dirty game, isn't it? But it's a dirty game. You allow the dirty people to participate in it. Then you turn around to criticize the dirty people and say that they are not doing. What do you expect from them? So if the right guys get into it, you may begin to, change the orientation, the situation around political engagement, processes, and all of that for a better outcome. Because, Megwa, if you see what exists, what goes on in the process of politicking, you see, they give you credit when you have capacity to manipulate the process. They give you credit when you can display gerrymandering. They give you credit when you know how to backstab. You do this or betray. That they say it's all politics. It's all politics. What is that? Oftentimes I don't even have stomach to keep all of this. I say, what? This one? That's why a lot of people see me as controversial. They say, no. It's like this. And those of us who are like this, we don't get to the nexus of the issues.
Well, I understand that my colleague Ayo has more questions for you. Over now to you.
Thank you, Mokwe. Mr. Fegwa, let me just go straight to one of the issues that my colleagues have raised with you and connect it with something that INEC said in its report. As a matter of fact, I would say it's one of INEC's attempts to be vulnerable. Talking about internal communication, INEC says they have an internal communication policy which they revised from 2013 up until the last election. Connecting it to the issue that was raised about the upload on IREV, that report says on page 160, around 4 p.m., the Commission began to receive reports that attempts to upload presidential election results were failing. Following that, the Commission engaged its field officials for details on and on. But then down the page, it says attempts to upload the results were generating internal service errors. Earlier in that report, INEC complained of internal communication, which led to low synergy among the departments with observable territoriality. So sometimes, could one adduce that some of these issues that questioned the entire outcome, as far as many people are concerned, is actually from within INEC itself and consequently needs some purging?
Well, thank you for your question. It's a function of two. It could be from within INEC. It could also be from the circle of politicians and those who are engaging in the process. When politicians are seeking for power, there's always a lot of desperation. And I've told you that I've had cases, I've had people in the build-up to that elections who were trained for the purpose of hacking into INEC facility. And so if in the process of doing that, they hack into it to cause technical glitches and what have you, you may say INEC is to be blamed. But at the end of the day, you discover that they are the ones, that the politicians are the ones who had caused that. That is one. The second thing is that there is no technology that is foolproof when it comes to issue of election or issue of IRF and what have you. Any technology at all can break down at any point in time. So it is not a thing to say, oh, we must kill INEC because they were unable to post results on IRF. At the same time, there are alternatives, which is the fact that agents can collect results at the polling unit level. If you have agents, you have. The APC, for example, has agents in the entire polling units. And so they fall back on the report from the agents at the polling unit level to know the entire behavioral pattern of voters at the local level, at the polling unit level, in summation to what the final outcome of the result is. But when you don't have agents in the entirety and you were waiting on IRF, when you are disappointed by a technical glitch, you are likely going to face this kind of scenario that we face, such that everybody was attacking INEC.
Well, everyone will take their own from the pie, Mr. Fegwa, but I understand that one of your colleagues in the field has since joined us. We expected him earlier. Yunusa Tanko is Chief Spokesman, Obidati Campaign 2023. He's also right there in our Abuja studio. Well, Mr. Tanko, I expect that you would want to respond to one or two things that you've heard Mr. Fegwa said since you were able to join us. How do you respond to his last comment about the fact that political parties did not have enough representation across board, consequently crying foul when IRF failed?
Okay, quickly, let me make this clear. The issue of having agents in the first place is to mitigate the possible outcome of corrupt tendency and wrong presentation or probably manipulation of the system. Ayo, with all due respect, when you employ people to perform a duty, counting and reporting the accurate figure of an election, if you have to be sincere to yourself, it's not because you have a manipulative and conspiring tendency. Do you even need anybody to checkmate you to do the right thing? Obviously, no. So the issue of agent is another alternative gap to checkmate those who will be corrupted in doing what is rightfully supposed to be done by each and individual. So therefore, that was the reason why the issue of the IRF was actually used as a kind of a checkmating gap between even the agents and the electoral officers themselves. Remember, this is not the first time we are having the issue of using electronic way of reporting elections. At those elections, about 4 years ago, we were having the use of Vivas. I was part of those particular electoral observers that went to Edo and Ondo. And for the first time, majority of us commended INEC. If they do the right thing, we will commend them. Check my video, you will see it. We commended them because at that time, there were at least almost 90% or 100% reportage of the actual results There was no mistake because the result that you counted at the polling unit replicate what everybody was seeing on the Rivers machine as at that time. So therefore, that means that we could do it. But then, the question here is this. We are talking about a presidential election that took place on 25th. 3 elections took place on the same time. Federal House of Reps, Senate, and then the presidential election. All reports were being done simultaneously. There's no way you can convince me or any person, sane person, in fact, even an insane person, that those results can be published for the 2 elections and one had a glitch. There was a deliberate attempt. And the truth is this. Somebody ought to have been held responsible. This particular report is just medicine after death.
Have you seen it?
I just read it on the surface level, particularly on the issue of IREF. Because if INEC had dealt with the issue at that time, in fact, to tell you the truth, some of the most highly qualified individuals who have been following the trend of events were the one that even called me 1 hour after. He said, look, I don't understand what's going on. I am seeing the report, the IRF is representing the report for Federal House of Reps Senate, but the presidential report, the result is not coming. What is going on?
Well, let's just read quickly, because they also mentioned, they said around 4 p.m. the commission began to receive reports that attempts to upload presidential election results sheets were failing. The commission immediately engaged with its field officials for details in order to understand and trace the origin, source, scale, and magnitude of the problem across the results management ecosystem to devise appropriate solutions. Attempts to upload the results were generating internal server errors, which refer to a significant impairment that usually originate from within an application due to problems relating to configuration, permissions, or failure to create or access application resources correctly. So that's what INEC is saying in their own excuse or in their own explanation of what happened with the problems of uploading presidential election results. That certainly doesn't satisfy you, does it?
Oh, not at all. Because if you were to create internal problems, why didn't it affect the Federal House of Reps and Senate? It's simple. Let it affect the whole 3 elections.
Then you would have accepted it.
Of course, it would have been clear that something is wrong and technically.
So, is this for you? Now, I'm wondering whether this is a management problem in the sense that when INEC noticed the problems, do you think it's how they handled it? Because, I mean, problems could emanate from anywhere, but in the manner in which they handled it, when they didn't immediately come out to say, look, we've noticed this challenge and this is what we're doing about it, do you think that that's what affected people's perception of what transpired?
At our situation monitoring office, immediately I received that call. I don't want to mention name, from a very highly respected person within the system. It was like 30 minutes after that the report went, and he called me, and I called the appropriate quarters immediately. Immediately, I called them. That's about 30 minutes, 1 hour in the situation room. So I called and I explained, this is going on. And this is going to affect your credibility and the credibility of the institution entirely. Look, this election can be made simply clear. Whoever wins, we are ready to give to congratulate whoever wins the election. But just make sure that it goes the way the IRF is going. Every Nigerian will be satisfied. Yes, we are working on it. No statement came. 2 hours, 3 hours, no any statement came as regard to what is happening with the presidential election. No statement.
So if a statement had been issued at that point...
Instantly, they could have explained to Nigerians, it could have sent a different message.
Okay, so we're almost out of time now. I want you to quickly, we're looking at also at reforms.
Yes.
From your own perspective, what are some of the key reforms that the National Assembly should be looking at?
Very good. Number 1, remember there was an electoral reform that started even before the amendment of 2010. I think all of these are protests and demonstrations. We should gear our strength towards this now. Insist that there's going to be a constitutional amendment on this Electoral Act. It must be done.
To reflect what?
To reflect the changes and institutionalize and make it a clear cut, not giving any kind of lacuna, the way that there's an option that if you don't have this, you can do this. Okay? Let's be clear on what the process are. Because INEC said one thing and they did another thing entirely. Two, the issue of appointment of INEC chairman and the processes of having INEC leadership must be visited. If we don't do it, we will have worse than glitches in the next election. INEC must be unbundled. We must have enforcement agency, just like Justice Mohammed Uwais report presented. We must have the delineation. We must have the electoral, what they call the electoral commission, who deals directly with only elections. And if we can't do that, it will help us. And we don't need to create any kind of room for it. The National Assembly should know that if they do this, they are doing it for themselves, not for Nigerians only, because tomorrow they will come back and be a victim of wrong laws.
Well, Mr. Afegbo already did say that, you know, we shouldn't be looking at reforms. We should operate the law for a while. Maybe 1 or 2 reforms, I think you'd be welcome.
Very well. So you see the point I want...
Just quickly, in 30 seconds.
Yes, if I follow his logic, I would say that there was no problem in the 2023 election in terms of IRF and no IRF. You know why? He said he accepted the outcome of the House of Rep, Senate, and the other elections, the result they posted, but only at the presidency and all that. So a party that didn't score well in the other elections, how did the party expect IRF to now produce results for it that will make it victorious? That is just my own big question.
We're looking at reforms. We're looking at reforms, Mr.
Yes, I know.
And gentlemen, we're totally out of time. We're totally out of time.
I wish I was here earlier.
I wish so. I really wish so, Mr. Tanko. So sorry about that, Mr. Tanko.
No, you should be sorry. He was
tell you how serious I was. I lost a tire. You can go.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
You should leave.
Just a moment, gentlemen. We're totally out of time. We have to say we have to thank them both for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We appreciate the difficulty that you had here. Mr. Yunus Tanko is the chief spokesperson, Obidati Campaign 2023, and also Mr. Kasim Afegbo is a former member, Media Strategy Committee of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress. Gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. Well, Ini, I know Ini is waiting for us right now, and we're going to be talking about how we're assessing the CBN's effort to save the Naira. Ini, you must have been excited to see the tripartite committee set up by the president yesterday. What outcomes should we be expecting from there?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Mark. But I don't know if I was excited or if I'm excited, because we've had a lot of committees before now, even during the former administration, former President Buhari. We had a lot of economic teams and all of that, but the impacts that we hope to see is another question, and I guess a conversation for another day. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Doing business in about 25-30 minutes now, starting from the global space. Oil prices fell on Monday, extending losses from the previous session after the dollar rose amid market concerns that higher than expected inflation could delay cuts to high U.S. interest rates that have been capping global fuel demand growth. Look at the numbers for this morning. We see that the price for Brent is down 0.4% at $81.27 a barrel. And then WTI from the United States, I must say, this is what Nigeria deals in. This is what Nigeria also has as crude. $76.14 a barrel, down 0.5%. Let's look at the factors that have drove this price to this level. A stronger dollar makes oil more expensive. We know that for late last week, the dollar reduced in its value compared to other currencies. The dip built on losses last week when Brent declined about 2% and WTI fell more than 3% on indications that U.S. interest rate cuts could be delayed by maybe 2 months due to that uptick in inflation. The geopolitical risk premium from Yemeni Houthis attacks on the ships in the Red Sea is still there. It remained modest at only $2 a barrel, a boost to the Brent. That's according to Goldman Sachs. However, the bank has raised its summer peak price to $87 a barrel from $85 as Red Sea disruptions have driven larger than expected draws in stocks held by countries that are members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And then from there, we go to the grain space now, see what's happening. Chicago corn gained ground on Monday with prices underpinned by short covering after the market dropped to its lowest level in more than 3 years last week, weighed down by ample world supplies and expectations of a bumper harvest in South America. Russia, cheap Russia grain is still contributing to this. Now let's look at the numbers. Wheat went up 0.5%. $5.71 for 3/4 of a bushel. Soybeans also added 0.3% to $11.45 a bushel. And now, of course, we already told you about wheat. Now, larger inventories of corn mainly used to feed animals and as biofuel are providing headwinds to prices, which could have dropped almost 12% so far. U.S. farmers held a whopping 7.83 billion bushels of corn in storage bins on their farms as at the 1st of December. That's the most ever for that date, and up 16% from a 9-year low in December 2022. Globally, leftover inventories are projected to reach a 5-year high by September after accounting for all the corn used to feed livestock, make biofuels, and other purposes. So now, we talk about green energy, and we know that one of that is biomass, biofuels, and you see grains also being affected because it increases demand, for these grains that are being used for those renewable energy. Now let's come home and see the price of commodities in Nigeria. Maybe this is what you have in your area. If not, you could communicate with us and tell us what the price is. Talking about grains now, rice. Some people say it's about 80 or more than 80,000, but from financial derivatives companies' findings, we find that recently 50 kg of rice, about 78,000 naira. I remember buying this rice for 15,000 naira not too long ago. At least I was an adult. Beans, 50 kg, 75,000 naira. Yam, the small size, about 1,200. The medium size, about 1,800. While the big one tuber of yam, 2,500 naira. How many families or how many times can a family feed on this? How much would you have to spend? Palm oil, 5 liters, about 5,700. Gari, which is the most staple food in Nigeria at this time, 33,000 naira for 50 kg. We have alluded this to the issue of insecurity, especially in those rural areas. But we see the government making a lot of effort. We're waiting for those efforts to trickle down to this. We also see the naira. Now, somebody was asking me, a bottle of groundnut that used to be about 500, 1,000 naira, now is at more than 2,000 naira. Is there a dollar element in that? Or is it Nigerians exploiting themselves? But we'll talk about that. First of all, let's do a little bit of real estate. Real estate and financing experts have identified urbanization and growing middle class in Nigeria as the indices that present opportunities for developers and untapped potential for domestic and foreign investors to inject capital into the real estate market. These form the crux of deliberations at the second edition of the annual WEMA Board 2024 Real Estate Outlook, which was in Lagos.
Real estate top executives.
For the second consecutive year, WEMA Board, a leading real estate and property development company, pulls together experts in the real estate sector to evaluate the impact of the microeconomy on the industry.
For edition
For WEMA Board, the discourse is important considering economic disruptions and volatility.
The real estate market has struggled due to shortage of investment capital, limiting growth and development. Addressing the macroeconomic issues like interest rates, inflation, and the foreign exchange crisis is crucial.
In his keynote address, Biodun Adedipe, renowned investment and financial consultant, provides in-depth understanding of the fluctuating economic conditions impacting the real estate market and how investors and industry players could take advantage of available opportunities.
There are still some things we need to interrogate and change in our policy environment to make portfolio investments to come. And my recommendation is this, of course, the panelists will also deal with this issue, that we need to fix the exchange rate officially within a defined band. In terms of looking forward, you must interrogate your strategic plan, if you have one. Then relentlessly re-engineer your business processes and get involved with and strengthen sector advocacy.
We call it very delicate balancing act.
A panel of experts and guests, including the chairman of Odua Investment Company Limited, Bimbo Ashiru, who participated virtually, shared their views on issues presented and strategies to drive growth of the real estate.
As we embark on this journey together, let us remember the importance of collaboration and knowledge sharing by fostering an environment of innovation and cooperation. We can collectively navigate the challenges ahead and unlock the full potential of real estate market.
We also have to start thinking about projects. They may be huge, but we also have to start thinking about them is to take it in piecemeal.
We have about 22 million housing deficit like that, but when you look at it critically, they are from the bottom down. And unless you change your laws, you change your ways, you change your innovation, that will remain the same for a long time to come.
With so much said about the volatility and opportunities in the real estate sector, how is Wema Board ready to champion the cause of shaping these opinions into solutions?
Wema Board is ready to champion that cause, including relating with state governments, federal government agencies, and coming out of this meeting, that will be our next steps, and it will be very fast.
I'm sure through channels and some other media, government will also feel our pulse. We hear what we are saying, we hear our cry, that a disaster has to be declared in the housing sector.
Okay, here we go. I guess they got the whole...
One of the highlights of the event is the recognition and presentation of awards to some organizations who have made significant impact and contribution to the growth of the real estate industry.
A round of applause for Ubosi and Co.
All right, now to other pressing issues in the economy. The Center for Promotion of Private Enterprises, that's CPPE, has expressed its support of the decision of the Central Bank of Nigeria to approve the use of exchange rate reflected on the import documentation, that's the Form M, at the onset of import transaction. In a statement signed by the Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Mude Yusuf, CPPE calls it a laudable response to the grievances of investors in the economy that would reduce the current uncertainty around imports and related transactions in the economy. Dr. Yusuf notes that, however, the CBN's intervention does not address the bigger and more troubling issue of current prohibitive cost of cargo clearance at the port, which had risen by over 40% in the last 2 months. It further appeals to the CBN to peg the customs duty exchange rate at 1,000 naira for $1 for the rest of the year, in line with the federal government's commitment to ease the current hardships on the citizens and the burden on businesses, as the current customs duty exchange rate of about 1,488 for $1 is still too high in the context of the current galloping inflation and difficulties facing businesses and the citizens. It should be noted that stakeholders have reported of instances of abandoned cargo currently on the increase as consequences of escalating trade costs. Well, let's talk about this and a whole lot more with Professor Olawale Ajayi. He joins us. He's the head of Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School. Joins us virtually now from Lagos Business School. Dr. Ajayi, Professor Ajayi, beg your pardon. Good morning, and thank you so much for your time.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So we did see that circular on Friday, late on Friday, from the CBN. I think that's the latest we've had. We don't know what's going to happen this week. Talking about the customs duties, which we know has been changed about 6 times so far this year. We're just in the 2nd month of the year. And now where they say that they're just whatever rate is prevalent at the time of initiating a transaction, that is what will be used to carry through. Do you think this actually brings certainty to that space?
I think it's an attempt to ensure that players can, plan, that there can be some predictability. And I think that's a pragmatic response. So I certainly will not fault it. One thing about development, countries trying to navigate development, national development, economic development, is that they must be ready, policymakers must be ready to be agile, and they must be ready to be to experiment. So I would say that that was a good response. Certainly, you cannot, you would actually do havoc in terms of the marketplace, helping people to plan, and the prices will keep moving in a yo-yo manner. So probably this is an attempt to try to begin to herd the market towards some measure of stability.
But Prof, if you were to maybe grade the efforts so far, especially from the central bank's stance, a lot of adjustments have been made. Some people have said that actually brings a lot of uncertainty. Why don't we have a wholesome update of the policies at once? How would you grade the current efforts?
I think we have to separate the central bank before the appointment of Mr. Cardoso. You remember there was some sort of interregnum. And even at that time, well, we started with Mr. Emefiele. There was an interregnum. There were issues of probe and so on and so forth. So that certainly suggests that in that period, there was not the necessary level of stability to be able to think holistically about things. But since Mr. Cardoso took over, one would expect that while there will not be complete institutional stability, however, there would be a movement towards being able to look back and look forward. So I would say that they've done well enough. It would be a bit presumptive. And I know for the public, business persons who are being hit by the uncertainties, there is no excuse. But I think under the difficult circumstances, I would say that they're doing fairly well. What I would not like, and what everyone who loves Nigeria should advocate, is that nothing should be done, by panic measures. We should try to be a bit more evidence-based in what we do. But there needs to be clarity and probably communication around the strategy. And I think for me, we're waiting to see that communication about the strategy. We'll get past the volatility. But you remember that when Mr. Soludo was central bank, it was very clear there was some journey plan, FSS 2020, consolidation of the banks and so on and so forth. That was very clear. So we want a return to that measure of strategic thought at the central bank. My personal view, very humble view, is that since Mr. Soludo left, the other central bank governors had not sort of tried to follow through, had not tried to really look at the national competitiveness. And of course, we had it veering into unorthodox measures, which admittedly has left us very, very badly done by.
All right, Prof, I hear you asking for clarity and direction, for the plans and strategy. Thank you. And no doubt you are the head of the Department of Strategy, so I'm sure you really appreciate getting the strategy. But thank you so much, Prof. Olawale Ajayi, Head Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's do a little bit of markets before we get back to Sunrise Daily. If we look at the numbers for last week for the market, the NGX, we see that it was a red market mostly and ended up in the red. For the summary, it was down 3.44%, and the market cap was still not back to the 56 trillion level at the close of trade for that week. If we see the stocks that made all of this happen, it's a red activity chart that we had right there. A total of about 42,000 deals at the close of trade on Friday. And there you have it. Banking was down, consumers was up, industrial goods really, really down right there. Market mover, positive or negative, industrial goods has been doing that for a while. Insurance, which seemed to be picking up for a bit, was actually down last week. We'll see what happens to it. Perhaps a lot of investors will try to cherry pick, seeing that the prices have dropped. Oil and gas, just a bit up. But the most important thing this week is that even as we speak, 10 a.m., so yeah, it's past 10 o'clock. So the MPC of the Central Bank of Nigeria is meeting as we speak. Remember, late last week, we had the lawmakers affirm those members that were going to be part of it. So they should be meeting now. They were supposed to start by 10 a.m. Tomorrow, they start by 8 a.m. Tomorrow is decision day. Today, they start conversations on those variables that should be considered to see where Nigeria goes. Well, I don't think anybody has said there's going to be a reduction in the rate. Everybody has said there's going to be how high, the increase in rate to be. But let's see what to expect from the markets, maybe from the MPC, as we have joining us in the studio, Patrick Ejemudia. He's the research analyst with Sterling Asset Management. Hi, Patrick. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Nini.
So we're here talking, and the MPC of the CBN are there. So what do you think they're discussing at this time?
Of course, nothing
inflation at 29.9%.
Exactly. I'm trying to see what they can put together to bring the level of inflation down.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes I just wonder. We know that the current CBN governor has said that there's inflation targeting. That's what we're working with. Yeah. But sometimes I just think, isn't that putting the CBN in a tight corner? Because a lot of the factors driving inflation in Nigeria is beyond the monetary policy makers. Yeah. It's in the fiscal. We talk of insecurity, supply chain disruptions, and all of that. So is the CBN...
Yeah, these are two issues. There's one on the fiscal aspect on the one hand, and there's the monetary aspect on the other hand. Now, if you look at from the monetary aspect, you see that money supply has also grown. If you check the growth of money supply from December to January, you will see that that value has gone up. And it now becomes paramount for the CBN as a tool to see what they can do to control the amount of money in circulation.
But that reminds me of an interview that we had with the Minister of Finance last week. And he said the reason why we have excess money in supply is because in the past 8 years, there was money being pumped into the economy without corresponding productivity. But I mean, this latest money in supply is just within this year. So it's not about 8 years ago. So that means there's still something that is being done wrong.
Yeah. And so two ways. We've mentioned one. The major problem is what we've talked about earlier, the problem of food insecurity. But again, now that the CBN has come, if you plot the trend of money supply, you will see that, yes, in the past 8 years, money supply has been growing as well. But the value that it has grown has shown this upward trend, particularly from June, when we had the unification of the exchange rate. And the essence is because government needs to now pump money to take care of this exchange rate depreciation that we are having. So that value has gone up. And if that value has gone up, the CBN, the monetary authority, will have no other option than to say, okay, how do we control the amount of money that is in circulation?
So we see them very busy at the fixed income market, auctions every weekend. I think the yields are looking good. So it's attracting a lot of investors. Is that working so far, or is it too early to say?
Yeah, it's too early for now because we'll begin to see the results, particularly if you look at the market now, the equity market, you see that people are moving because they are coming to take advantage in the fixed income space. And what that happens is that these monies will be more part of the system. And if they mop it out of the system, then what we'll begin to see, maybe sometimes in March, maybe not too soon, maybe in the very long run, we'll begin to see these things yield some positive results.
When you say March, I just laugh. I laugh, Patrick, because even the United States that thought they would start rate cuts, they're still postponing till about 2 months. So I wonder when we have inflation at 29, we have food inflation at over 30. I wonder when we'll ever talk about cutting rates.
No, for now, we might not be talking about cutting rate because the rate is very high at the moment. 29.9 is very high. So before we'll be talking about cutting rate is to bring it down. In the United States, they are talking about bringing that to about 2%. And they are currently above that, just about, I don't know, but they are currently above that. But in Nigeria, we are very high. So we cannot be talking about cutting rate now. But we hope that if we get it right now, the rate will start coming down, then in the next future we'll then be talking about...
So do you think in the past we have had conversation about, we see the MPC increasing rates, we don't see a corresponding impact in the economy. Do you think that it will be different now?
Yeah, the one major reason why it's always like that, because you see the MPC increasing the rate, and at the same time the fiscal authorities are increasing the expenditure. So it doesn't go together. So for it to work, the two authorities must pursue the same goal. And that's the reason why you see those things don't go together. If monetary policy is increasing the rate, inflation is also going up, and you'll be wondering why. The reason is probably sometimes attributed to the fact that the fiscal authorities are, at that time that the monetary policy is increasing the rate, they are increasing expenditure.
So maybe because then we didn't have a coordinating minister of the economy. Now we have one. And in that our conversation with him, with Channel TV, he did promise that there'll be closer collaboration between, you know, the fiscal and the monetary. So do you think, or do you see conscious efforts by the fiscal side to cut expenditure so that they will reduce the money going into the economy?
For now, Nigeria can't be talking about cutting expenditure now because if you know...
So it's a contradiction, so where do we go from here?
So the issue is basically that you keep hearing about the food insecurity problem and government is trying to see what they can do to boost the agricultural sector and all that. But at the same time, there's still some level of control. You cannot just leave it and say because you want to keep pumping money into circulation, both authorities should be pumping money and all that. What you will see at that level will be high level of inflation that we may not be able to control or be talking about at that time.
Well, the good thing is you've heard about ways and means. How much does that contribute? Now we've seen this administration saying they're going to cut down or maybe reduce or stop ways and means. I'm not sure which stand they want to take now. But how much does ways and means contribute to the challenge that we have now?
Of course, these are form of money supply into the system. And so because by the time the CBN gives this to the government, it pumps into the economy. And that's, of course, increase supply and causes inflation. And of course, that can also be the reason why we're having some of this exchange rate crisis that we're having, because with more money, people have more money to demand for FX. So it has a role to play. So if the CBN or the Monetary Authority is saying they want to control it, then it's a good one. But the major issue is that drive to be able to keep to it, to make it stable, and so that it doesn't now come out of hand after a few weeks or a few months.
Not when there's a need, then we see them going back there.
Exactly.
But how does all of this affect the market? The equities market. We've seen the NGX slow down in the last 2 weeks. We want to assume that the investors are going to the fixed income market because the yields are looking attractive. But how do you see all of this, the decision of the MPC and all of that affecting investor sentiment?
Yeah, that tells you the level of risk appetite of Nigerians. Most people want a situation where they'll put their money in a place where they can get stable income. Even though the return in the equity market is high, but the risk is also very high. So because the rate at the fixed income is coming up now, you see a lot of people moving from that market, and that's why you see the market likely to go down, because those factors that drove the market up to the level that it is now, they're actually not there again. Before now, we see the strategic position of investors. They are trying to take position of, because of the Q4 report and the full year report of company that was coming out, people are taking position, and all those other things, they are now out. So what's driving the market now going down is because of the rates in the fixed income space that is going up. So people are moving towards that market. And like I said, because of the low risk appetite of Nigerians.
Yeah, but the earnings, I don't think the earnings for NGX, I don't think it really made a lot of movement. Or did I miss it? The earnings and the statements that came out, financial statements.
Yeah, it didn't make so much movement, but again, because the factors that drove the market initially, sometimes we know that it has some factors to play. Those earnings have some factors to play. But if you take a very careful look at it, you will see that two main factors are what drove the market. In January, you will see that the rate in the fixed income was low, and people move money from the fixed income market to the equity market. But in February, this rates started coming up. So people are taking money from that to this place now because of, like I said, the risk appetite. Again, you also see that the major factor that, again, has made this market to go up, like I've always said, is because the exchange rate has also depreciated. And when this exchange rate depreciates, like I've said, you will see firms that have foreign assets, you see their values going up. And when their values going up, the demand for their shares go up. And when the demand for their shares go up, their share price will go up. And that's why you see a lot of companies now, their share price, the banking sector, you see their share price coming up. And so that is one activity that has been driving the market up. And these activities are no more there anymore. And that's why the market is coming down.
All right. Do you want to say how many basis points you think the MPC will raise rates?
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of issues there and there about people saying 300, 500. But I think between 50 basic and 150 basis points.
Oh, you're not even up to 200.
No,
I've had 200 the most.
Not up to 200. Because, we have to look at what exactly do we want to pursue. Government at the moment now is also trying to grow like you pointed out in your review, you will see that the industrial market, the industrial goods sector is down. Yeah. And why? Because the rate is already up for most of them to borrow. And when they are not borrowing, they are not investing, people are not buying their stock as well, so they will not be doing well in the market. And I'm sure that government wants to increase that sector to do well too. So they will not want to increase the rate beyond 50 basis points or 150 basis points.
All right, we just have to wait about 24 hours and we'll know if that's correct or not. Thank you so much, Patrick Ejemudi, research analyst, Sterling Asset Management.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. All right, so that's it on this side of Sunrise Daily. Back to the conversation, the current affairs side of Sunrise Daily with Maokwe, Ayo, and Kayla. Kayla, I really have to get used to having you on the team, so don't forget me. Don't forgive me, but back to you guys for the rest of the program.
It's the first extraordinary summit of the Economic Community of West African States, Authority of Heads of State and Government, holding in Abuja. It is focused on the peace, political and security situation in the ECOWAS sub-region. In his welcome address, the bloc's chairman, President Bola Tinubu, emphasized the importance of a comprehensive and collaborative approach to addressing pressing security and peace developments, as well as political situations in the republics of Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Mali.
Times like this, currently, we face in our sub-region demand that we take difficult but courageous decisions that put the plight of our people at the center of our deliberations. This is why we must re-examine our current approach to the quest for constitutional order in 4 of our member states.
He also reaches out to the military leaders in the 4 countries.
I therefore urge them to reconsider the decision of these 3 nations to exit our home and not to perceive our organization as the enemy, because we are not the enemy.
The meeting then goes behind closed doors. Over 2 hours later, it is time to receive the resolutions reached.
The authority has resolved as follows. Release of President Bazoum. The authority calls for the immediate release of His Excellency Mohamed Bazoum, former President of the Republic of Niger. The authority also calls on the transition authorities in Niger to provide an acceptable transition timetable to constitutional order.
He also announced the lifting of some of the sanctions imposed on some of the countries.
The authority has resolved to lift with immediate effect the following measures imposed on the Republic of Niger. A, closure of land and air borders between ECOWAS countries and Niger to be lifted. No-fly zone of all commercial flights to and from Niger is to be lifted. Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between ECOWAS member states and Niger is to be lifted. This decision is based on humanitarian considerations, especially as we are in the month of Lent and as we prepare for the holy month of Ramadan. The authority has also resolved to lift financial and economic sanctions on the Republic of Guinea.
A resolution was also taken on the notice of withdrawal by the 3 countries.
The authority takes note and further urges the countries to reconsider the decision in view of the benefits that the ECOWAS member states and their citizens enjoy in the community. The authority further urges the 3 member states to resort dialogue, negotiations and mediation to address their concerns.
In response to the political crisis in Senegal, the authority urges Senegalese stakeholders to prioritize discussion in order to preserve Senegal's democratic advances through free, inclusive, and transparent elections. From the State House, Lanre Lassisi, Channels Television News.
Let's have conversations around that which you just saw on your screen before this very moment. Bayo Oluwake joins us this morning. He's an international affairs analyst. He joins us virtually from Lagos. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Oluwake. Perhaps, just by way of understanding exactly what has just happened. Is it the ECOWAS rescinding on its decision, biting the bullets, going back on its word, kowtowing, or really, as the statement says, being considerate based on humanitarian grounds? What exactly has happened?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. It was a momentous summit, and I believe strongly that the outcome of that summit converges with the position that quite a number of concerned observers had made at the very beginning of this crisis, especially when Niger fell into a military government. I think the best description would be to say that with regard to Niger, ECOWAS has now effected the recognition of the military government in Niger. Just going by the statement read by the chairperson of the ECOWAS Commission that you just broadcast, he referred, in calling for the release of President Bazoum, he referred to him as the former president of Niger. And then he went on to say ECOWAS wants an acceptable transition timetable, the no-fly zone for commercial aircraft, and the land borders that have been closed were opened, financial and economic sanctions were lifted. That's on Niger. And then, of course, on Guinea, all the sanctions, financial and economic sanctions on Guinea were also lifted. And then, of course, it was quite interesting to hear ECOWAS say that all parties in Senegal should work together towards the success of the transition to the next republic. Now, remember that ECOWAS had issued a press release some weeks back in which it said it understood the conditions warranting the postponement of elections in Senegal as announced by President Macky Sall. And I think ECOWAS would be embarrassed by the Supreme Court decision in Senegal proclaiming the postponement of those elections by President Sall as unconstitutional. So all in all, ECOWAS has corrected itself, but I think the most important thing for us here is to acknowledge that the decisions that ECOWAS has taken are in the spirit, those decisions are a victory for Pan-Africanism.
So on the one hand, it's a victory for Pan-Africanism. There are those who are also listening now and would say, okay, the initial decision was a diplomatic error. What would you respond? What would you say to them in response?
They will be correct. Those who hold this view will be correct. And otherwise, ECOWAS will not announce this cocktail of reversals. It's obvious that I personally also feel that deeper consultation could have taken place before those rush of sanctions were announced. And what actually buttresses this position and might actually strengthen the hands of those who hold that opinion would be the fact that, take the Republic of Ghana. Ghana and Burkina Faso are neighbors. Burkina Faso uses Ghanaian ports to import goods and services. Burkina Faso relies on Ghana for the supply of electricity. It is quite instructive that despite ECOWAS sanctions, Ghana did not close its ports to Burkina Faso, and Ghana did not cut off electricity supply to Burkina Faso. So this would strengthen the hands of those who might say that ECOWAS probably made a blunder, not just in the rush of decisions that were announced, but even in the coordination of the enforcement of the sanctions. Because while a country like Nigeria, for instance, was faithful to ECOWAS, regardless of internal disagreement by Nigerian citizens with some of those decisions, nonetheless, the Nigerian authorities kept faith with ECOWAS. But another ECOWAS member, as I just mentioned, did not bother to effect any of those sanctions. And what did ECOWAS do to that country? Nothing.
Okay, so now with this, and I'm sure that my colleagues in Abuja want to join in the conversation for, at some point. But before then, what part of the expectation of that statement also says that Nigeria remains open for engagement with Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, so that all the people of the region can continue to enjoy the economic benefits and democratic values that ECOWAS embraces. How do you see these three countries responding?
This is a very, very critical question. I believe strongly that there should have been back-channel diplomatic negotiations before ECOWAS came to this point of reversing itself. Because if there had not been those back-channel diplomatic negotiations, either directly or through track 2 functionaries, then ECOWAS may end up being embarrassed. If, despite reversing itself, those three countries were to go ahead and insist that they are not returning to ECOWAS. Indeed, Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, in an interview he granted just a couple of days back, had insisted that there would be no return to ECOWAS. Brigadier General Abdurrahman Tiani of Niger also granted an interview a couple of days ago where he went down memory lane to explain how ECOWAS was formed, his own version of that. Most of it, I think, were correct, but there are certain interesting points he added to it, which I think were from his own perspective. But then he was concluding that interview by asserting that they were not returning to ECOWAS. So in view of such interviews granted by these two out of the three heads of state of the countries that announced their pullout, I was expecting, and I would have expected, that ECOWAS would have reached some sort of understanding with them that they will return if these sanctions were reversed.
But then another angle to that, I'm talking about some back-channel communication. We also recall that about 4 days ago or thereabout, former head of state, Yakubu Gowon, asked ECOWAS to lift the sanctions. And of course, perhaps in response, that also happened. I mean, I don't think anyone would assume that it was because of just that one conversation. There are a number of other people or things that may have happened, just as you said. So in the event that these countries do not return to ECOWAS, what are the implications and what are the options for Nigeria as a country and her nationals, particularly along the borders?
Okay, first I would say that the role that General Gowon played is very instrumental. And I don't think we should, it's good you mentioned it, it's very critical. He's the only founding father, he's the only one out of the founding fathers of ECOWAS who is still alive. And ECOWAS was actually championed by General Yakubu Gowon and the late President Gnassingbé Eyadema of Togo. These two were the pivots of the
I think we're trying to get that connection back, but that's a very critical point that we would have loved to hear more. Can we hear him? Is he back?
Will be the impact of this. I think, first of all, the sanctions from the interview I referred to, granted by Brigadier General Chani, it was obvious from what he said that the sanctions had severe impact, not just on the state of Niger, but on the population of Niger. In fact, he went on to say that people were dying in Niger as a consequence of the sanctions. I don't know if that can be verified, but if you consider the cutoff of electricity supply and the fact that most West African countries do not have a generator mentality like we have in Nigeria. Many of them don't have personal generators to power their homes in the event of power failure. So it is most likely that hospitals, for instance, will have been terribly hit by the cut-off of electricity, which could lead to people losing their lives, as Brigadier General Chiani was alluding to. But going to the question of the implication of this on a wider scale, especially also for Nigeria, I think strongly that the decision of ECOWAS is the right one to make in view of the reality in which we find ourselves in the sub-region. And I think it can only be good for the people, especially of those three countries, particularly Niger, because Niger was extremely terribly hit. You remember that the other countries have been under military rule a bit longer than Niger and had somewhat adapted to the sanctions that were imposed on them. You know, but for Niger...
This is Channels Television. We'll now interrupt our regular programming for live coverage of the Southeast launch of Lightup Nigeria project. Do stay with us.
This is a live Channels Television event.
While we are still standing, in view of the current reality, we will take the pledge. I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity, and uphold her honor and glory. So help me God. Let's be seated, please. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency Kashim Shettima, GCON. Please, the cameraman, let us have one room, please. Thank you. Your Excellency, the host governor, that has given Enugu State a new look, rebranded, and development is in almost 180 days has changed the landscape of the state. His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba, I welcome you. Let me welcome here His Excellency the Governor of Imo State, Chairman of the Southeast Governors Forum, Chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum. I'd like to welcome His Excellency Governor Hope Uzodinma. I welcome you, sir. Also here with us is the Governor of Anambra State, former Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, again changing the landscape of development in Anambra State. I understand in all the 36 states of the Federation, Anambra State is one that is doing free education from primary to GSS 3. Professor Soludo, Charles Chukuma Soludo is here with us. Prof, I welcome you. That means in a few years from now, we'll have a whole lot of children who are also professors. Thank you very much. Let me also welcome His Excellency, the Governor of Ebonyi State. Your Excellency, your dance step on your Thanksgiving Day, I'll come and copy it. Congratulations to you, the Governor of Ebonyi State, Right Honorable Francis Winfrey. I'd like to welcome here the former President of the Senate, who's here with us. I'd like to welcome His Excellency I am GCOM. Your Excellency, I welcome you. Thank you very much. Let me welcome all the members of the National Assembly here present. Let me particularly welcome Distinguished Senator Ositangu, who is not only representing the Senate Committee Chairman on Power, he's also the Minority Whip of the Senate. I welcome you, Distinguished Senator. Okay. He's telling me that he's from this state, my co-anchor. I'd like to welcome all other members of the National Assembly that are here, from the House of Representatives. Let me welcome the former governor of Imo State, Owile Ruchas Okorocha, who is also here with us. I welcome you. I'd like to welcome very especially the Honorable Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu. I welcome you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. The Managing Director of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, Mr. Chiedu Ogbu, is also here with us. I welcome you. Let me particularly welcome all the executive directors of the Power Holding Company. Ifeoluwa Oyedele, Executive Director of Networks, I welcome you. Babayo Shehu, Executive Director of Finance and Accounts, I welcome you. Mrs. Nkechimba, Executive Director of Corporate Services, I welcome you. Engineer Kashima Abdullahi, Executive Director of Generation, is here with us, I welcome you. Dr. Stephen Ansenge, MON, Executive Director of Legal Services, I welcome you. We'll continue to do the recognitions. I also recognize and welcome Distinguished Senator Uche Kunife, the Director General of the Southeast Governors Forum, who is here with us. Distinguished Senator Osita Ezenazor, Chairman, Senate Committee on Capital Markets. I also welcome you. And let me welcome Distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Uba, who is also here with us. But as an elder statesman here, who has contributed so much from the private sector, the Chairman of EEDC, Sir Emeka Ofo, is also here with us. I welcome you. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue the recognitions, but let me welcome all of you to Enugu. Let me welcome all of you to the Southeast. The Southeast, home to 22 million people, covering 5 states. Although there is party diversity, 4 parties, but they are still linked by a common ancestry, common purpose, and mutual aspiration. So as I welcome you to this business roundtable that is focused on lighting up Nigeria, what runs in my mind is that today, even as you look out, the morning sun rises over Southeast with a whisper of hope. With this project, a new day dawns, washing away yesterday's sorrows. Like birds, the Southeast is ready to soar, embracing the rhythm and the melody that serenades us with eternal songs of brightness and power. So welcome to the world of the Niger Delta Power Company that brings light to Nigeria.